Coming up this week on Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, Tesla quietly discontinues a battery option in Canada, and the rest of the world may be next. Apps may finally be coming to your Tesla in a way you didn't expect, and more. Let's ride. Welcome to Ride the Lightning. I hope you're having a pleasant day whenever and wherever you are listening from. My name is Ryan McCaffrey. This is the unofficial Tesla podcast, episode 26 for January 31st of 2016. And I am coming to you, well, not live, recorded live from my rental car. Yes, I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but I got ever so slightly rear-ended a week or two ago. Happened to, at least I caught the guy doing it. The guy just couldn't parallel park properly. He was very apologetic, but at least I caught him. Otherwise, he probably would have just drove off and never said a thing, and I'd have had a nice extra scratched bumper. But at least I'm getting it taken care of. And here I am in a rental Mazda 3. At least they gave me a new one. Had 11 miles on the clock when I had it. So when they handed it to me. So anyway. That's that. First of all, I want to thank everybody who forwarded me all of the big DeLorean news this week. And it was many of you. Many of you were very kind of, did you hear the news? Absolutely heard the news. Of course I did. I'm very happy for my friends at the new DeLorean Motor Company who now, under a new law, have sort of an exemption to produce just a few hundred new DeLoreans, new 1982 DeLoreans with their sort of already existing stash of existing parts, new original stock parts, and where necessary or it makes sense, upgraded parts. So I'm very happy for them. I wish I could afford to grab one of the new ones. I'd be happy to have any DeLorean back in my life, but someday, hopefully, it'll happen. I just appreciate the fact that all of you out there, many of you out there, think of me. When you hear DeLorean, you think of me, and I like that. That's I've always been happy to be associated with DeLorean, and hopefully I will one day have that association with Tesla, where I'll be like, oh yeah, you're the friend in my life who has a Tesla. Although hopefully that'll be many people. They'll be like, oh, you have a Tesla too. But anyway, I want to start with Dave, who called in about Model 3. He is curious about timelines. Let's hear from Dave. Dave, go ahead.
Hi Ryan, it's Dave from the UK here. Just been thinking about the Model 3 and I'm looking forward to the reveal event at the end of March. I was just wondering what the kind of timeline is after that. When production begins, when cars are due to be rolling off the production line. I guess the Gigafactory coming online ties into that as well. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts rather on, if you know what that timeline looks like. I know you've mentioned putting down a deposit after the March event and then saying you're not really expecting your car till, I think it was 2018, which is obviously, quite a long time. So I'm just wondering what kind of happens in between those timeframes. If you could touch on that, that'd be really useful. Other than that, keep up the good work. Love the podcast and look forward to it every Sunday. Keep it up. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Dave, thank you for the call. This is, of course, a very difficult question to answer because Tesla is fairly difficult to predict. Ask anyone who was on the Model S waiting list and ask anyone who was or still is on the Model X waiting list, which is still most people. Most of the people on the list are still waiting, still on the list. So the timeline, as best as we can piece it together, kind of goes like this. We're looking at late March for the announcement, which, hilariously, not that I can complain here, but I'm scheduled to be on a family trip in Hawaii the last week of March, so I really don't want to have to be trying to get my reservation in from hotel Wi-Fi, especially because I expect the servers will be absolutely tortured that first day. And I want to get as high on that list as I can, but yes, I expect reservations to begin on the night of the event, of the reveal event for those that are in attendance, which if I'm lucky, maybe Tesla will invite me as they did to the Model X event. And then the next day is when when history suggests that they will open it up to everyone. After that, it's probably going to be pretty quiet for a while. The X, we saw the prototype in early 2012, and then the prototype was trotted out again at CES the following year, and the North American International Auto Show might have been the next year as well. And yeah, I expect the same prototype tour will occur for Model 3, but I think it'll be fairly quiet. Elon, once it's announced, once it's revealed, Elon's going to be getting even more questions about it on conference calls and at interviews than he's already asked. I mean, if I were able to check him off my bucket list and actually get him for an in-depth interview for half an hour or an hour, it would be a lot of Model 3 questions. I would be very curious, because that's, of course, what I'm personally interested in, and that is the Model 3 is the end game of, or at least the primary goal, not the end game, but, the primary goal of Tesla's existence is to get that car on the road. So, I think we'll just get little drips and drabs of information throughout 2016 after the car is announced and into 2017. Then the fun part, which we saw with S and X, will be trying to get some spy shots, get some teases of the inevitable alpha version, the alpha build of the car. And then will there be, the question is, will they have any sort of event before the car ships for reservation holders? They did not with the X. They did with the S, which I was at. So it's really, there are a lot of mysteries here, and we don't know quite how it's going to go. But once, they've been sticking very, very firmly. Every time they're asked, Elon or anyone else at the company is asked, it's late 2017. Tesla does not have a good track record with shipping things on time. That's the one thing the company's really not good at. Fortunately, if you're going to not be good at something, that's probably the thing to not be good at, because they're really good at making amazing cars. They're 3 for 3 so far, particularly, of course, with the S and X when they're on their own and not assembling gliders built by Lotus. But yeah, it's probably going to not pick up a lot of heavy steam until, I would say, summer of 2017. That's when I would start to expect the, sightings of the cars, maybe an event, and then it's going to start to really heat up in the fall, when there'll probably be mules out on the road, and we'll get closer and closer until the reveal event, the second reveal event, the sort of delivery event, as it were, and then it'll just be, everybody will be starting to get real antsy for their cars come fall of 2017, myself included. So that is how I see it going. Obviously, we'll finally get to see it, or at least the prototype, coming up here in a couple of months, and then I do expect it to be very quiet. Remember, too, again, Elon has always said that, unlike most manufacturers, that he wants the production car to be better than the prototype, and he's 2 for 2 in that department. The S final shipping car was much better than the original prototype. Same thing with the X, other than you could justifiably make the argument a lot of people are not happy with the second row fold down seat situation compared to how it was on the prototype of the X. But overall, I think could be argued that both the S and the X, the production versions, were superior to their prototypes. So that's another thing to look forward to, is the fact that whatever we see at this event in March, what we end up getting to drive and put on our garages may very well be a good bit better. So March is getting closer. I mean, it's January 30th as I record this. That event, if it stays on schedule, we're T-minus 60 days or less until we finally know what this thing looks like. We probably won't find out a ton more. Maybe some just basics, some sort of maybe overall performance goals for the car that Elon will state. And by performance, I mean 0 to 60, that kind of actual speed performance, not sales performance. I expect he may talk about, it's possible he may talk about the second version of autopilot, but he might not want to do that because then that's probably iffy, because if he talks too much about the next generation of autopilot, people might hold out and not buy Model S's now or X's now and just go, well, I'll just wait for the better version of autopilot that's going to roll out with the Model 3. And then, of course, I'm sure it would also go to the S and X at the same time. But so, yeah, I expect we'll see the car. We'll hear about some performance numbers that they're, ballpark performance numbers, maybe range numbers for the car, and whatever other fancy tricks it's got up its sleeve. Although we've been told to expect not a lot of fancy tricks for the Model 3 compared to the S and certainly the X. So we'll see. But good stuff there from Dave. Next, I got a letter, a good old-fashioned email, not an actual letter, from Ben. Okay, I apologize. I'm probably going to ruin your name here. I'm going to guess one of two ways. It's McLeish or McLeish you are from Leeds over in the UK. And he writes in and says, during my test drive with a Model S yesterday, the Tesla colleague confirmed that the Model 3 will be unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show. Take it as you will, but she seemed pretty certain. Nice to see Europe as an emerging point for Tesla news. So, Ben, I don't know you, and I don't know this Tesla representative that you spoke with. First of all, it wouldn't be the first time that a Tesla rep said something that ended up really not being accurate. They have good intentions, but I looked it up. So the Geneva Auto Show is not far away. It's coming up soon. It would be before the stated late March event for the Model 3 reveal. I don't see any way at all that Tesla unveils this thing at the Geneva Auto Show or any other public or any other, industry event. They're going to have their own event. I just don't see. I mean, yes, the Model 3 needs to get out to everyone and be seen by everyone, and a place like a Geneva Auto Show is a good place to do that. But Tesla, they know the media will all show up, myself included. I mean, they're going to get a ton of press at a Model 3 reveal event of their own. They don't need to be a part of a Geneva show. And I don't expect they're going to control the message. They're going to want the news to be about them, not about, well, at the Geneva Auto Show, we saw this from Ferrari and this from Porsche, and the Model 3 from Tesla. No, they're going to want it to be about them. Very Apple-like in that regard, which, of course, most everybody does their own big events for stuff now. I mean, CES is a Samsung keynote and a Sony keynote, and it used to be a Microsoft keynote. So, everybody does the Apple thing now, but including Tesla. So I fully expect I would be willing to bet a nice lunch or a nice dinner that the Model 3 will not be revealed in any venue other than a Tesla specific event, probably in Hawthorne, down at the design studio, because that's going to be where the prototype lives. I think I've said this before on the podcast, maybe in the last couple of weeks, that it would be a massive security risk to put it in a truck and bring it up here and have the event in Fremont. Anybody could snap a picture of it, loading, unloading. I mean, I fully expect, just as with the S or at least certainly with the X, that the reveal event will be in Hawthorne at the design studio. So we will find out very soon. And on the topic of Model 3, I actually wanted to bring up something a little personal here, and pardon me for what may be an aside, but maybe this is relevant to some of you. I hope maybe some of you can sympathize. I'm actually hoping for a little advice. And that is, I've been dreaming of the Model 3 since I was turned on to Tesla in the summer of 2009, when our DeLorean Club had an event at the original Menlo Park store. They showed us the final assembly building in the back. I think I went over all that in episode 1, where I talked about my sort of Tesla origin story. But, I knew right then and there, like the Roadster was amazing, and I was convinced that electric and Tesla was the way to go in the future. And I figured, okay, well, I'd read the not so secret master plan from Elon, and I knew, like, okay, this third generation car, that's going to be the one to get. You know, I when the S came out, couldn't afford that. Certainly can't afford an X. You know, my wife is self-employed. I work in the media field, which is, I make an okay living. I certainly can't complain too loudly, particularly if any of my bosses are listening. But you know, I'm not exactly rolling in cash over here. I'm very thankful for the life I have, don't get me wrong, but the fact of the matter is, the most expensive car I've ever bought, well, even though I've only bought a couple, is my Infiniti. I paid about, with all the warranty and all the bottom line, it was about $40,000 for my G35, and that was when I was 25 years old, and I had a big, huge down payment saved up, and I took out a decent, pretty good size loan. It was like $500 car payment for 6 years, it might have been. And, in hindsight, that was probably not the smartest move to make. I also had my DeLorean at the time, which, I was putting some money into that from here time and again. And anyway, the point being is, as I've completely just soaked up every bit of Tesla news and become so passionate about Tesla and what they're doing and wanting to get the Model 3 and planning to get the Model 3, I've really hoped that I would be able to get a fully decked out, check every box, just on the website, just click everything, click every option, ludicrous, the whole 9 yards. And it seems like that's probably, just ballparking it, going to be around $80,000 from just trying to compare whether you take it depends. You can look at it any couple of ways. We obviously won't know pricing for a long time. We won't know pricing in March, other than they're probably going to reaffirm the $35,000 base price, but they're certainly not going to tell us what the top of the line, signature edition is going to go for. So I finally had a talk with my wife about it. It had been something, she obviously knows about it. She knows it's a thing I care about. And, I will say she doesn't really get my car passion, particularly my DeLorean and now Tesla passion. She sees cars as, if we're being kind, appliances. And if we're not being kind, she sees them as pools of red ink. And fundamentally, she's not wrong about that. Those are facts. But, as I think a lot of you can probably relate to, we see Teslas and cars in general, and particularly Teslas, as something more. As just a something that you're passionate about. I suppose you could call it a hobby, but yeah, it's a passion. It's something that really just enriches your life in a real way. I mean, I've read so many accounts of people buying Teslas and driving more miles than they ever had before, and going on road trips all the time, and just their lives being fundamentally really changed for the better by the car because of what it is and what it does and how economical it is to operate, and the supercharging network, the whole thing. So, I've dreamed of being able to, I can't do an S, but I thought, well, I've been planning it for years, trying to save. I took some of the DeLorean money from when I sold that, and that's, I have a Tesla fund socked away. It's got a little chunk of change in it, not nearly enough, but it's my hope that I'd really hope that this time, because I just had this bit of money put away, that I'd be able to try and save and reach and get a fully loaded Model 3. But, my wife is she is self-employed, but she is in the world of personal finance. And she doesn't, really like cars, but she really just fundamentally cannot go along. She's sending me websites with links to that are true. I mean, that if you spend $80,000 on a car, that's versus 35, the base price of the Model 3, it turns into like $300,000 that you're missing out on over a number of years. And these are all things that are true. I don't refute any of it. But I guess I'm so passionate about this that I just wanted this to be the one time where I could, because I had a little extra socked away for this, the one time where I could just reach up and get like the top of the line coolest thing, because, you know, when I just wanted to, when the time when I finally got to become a Tesla owner, something I've been waiting, 6 years for, so far and counting, that I'd be able to just go all out and just, you know, because it's the most fun. I mean, you guys, those of you, I know there are listeners out there with P85Ds or P90Ds or P85s. You know that, yeah, that you got the performance model because it's, you know, it's fun. It adds another layer of fun to it. And I want that. But, you know, it was a really difficult discussion. I mean, to my wife's credit, she, you know, was very calm about it, reasonable about it, didn't turn into a fight or anything. But at the end of the discussion, I mean, where I sit is, it's just not, you know, because you have to do what's best for you can't. I'm not in a position, I'm not the kind of guy that would just, my wife was fundamentally opposed to something. You know, we're a team, we work together. I'm not going to go out there and go, well, screw you, I'm going to buy the full $80,000 top spec version anyway. And then she'd just resent it for years, and it would, you know, that's not something I'm anywhere remotely interested in going. That's not a road I want to go down. So, you know, where I'm going with this is, how have any of you listeners found yourself in a similar situation, either with the 3 or with the X, or when you got your S? I mean, I know, I suppose in general, if you can afford an S or an X, is that you're probably doing pretty well for yourself. You might not live in the Bay Area, which is literally the most expensive place in the country to live. But I'd be kind of curious, you know, does anybody have any advice for me? You know, should I, you know, just find a way to be satisfied with a non-performance version of Model 3 and just find a way to be happy with what I have? I guess I don't even know quite what I'm asking. I guess I just wanted to share the story. I mean, of course, yeah. I guess a Model S and an X is priced up in a range already such that if you can afford it, you just probably aren't even having these discussions with your significant other. It's just you're clearly in a high enough income bracket where an S is or an X is a totally doable expense in your life, and bravo to you. More power to you for it. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. If you've got any feedback on this, I would love your emails. Maybe not your phone calls. I don't think we need to rehash this necessarily in phone call form from the hotline, but yeah, maybe write to me. I would just love to hear, especially, you know, maybe you just have a private thing you want to say, or yeah, if you could email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. I could use a little either support or encouragement or advice and I'm not looking for advice on, well, here's how to just convince your wife that you do need the performance version. I guess I'm looking for your reactions to it, because I'm now sitting here and she doesn't listen to this podcast. That's why. And even if she did, it would be okay. This is all stuff we talked about. But I guess I'm trying to figure out, I do have her on board for the bigger battery, because there is a totally practical, I mean, the bigger battery makes sense in a lot of ways. But yeah, I guess, you know, the sort of equivalent would be those of you that bought 85Ds or 90Ds, but didn't opt for the performance version. And I know, you know, I started thinking about it, and it's, well, you know, the 85D, which I've driven one of, my Uber boss pair, the one I drove to do the autopilot video that I made for IGN. I drove his car, and, you know, the 85D is 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. I mean, it's a pretty quick car. It's the equivalent of the original, performance-wise, the rough equivalent of the original P85. But, of course, it's just not in crazy, 3-second 0 to 60 version. And so I started thinking, well, if the 3, the 3 is going to be a smaller car, bit of a smaller car, lower drag coefficient, lighter car. Of course, it'll have fewer battery cells as well. So, but I thought, well, if I'm able to sell my wife on the dual motor version, which it makes a lot of sense to get the D because it's more efficient, better traction, so it's a little safer. And if we ever wanted to go up to Tahoe or anywhere snowy, that traction and drivability is going to make a lot of sense. And also the dual motor version is going to have the highest range of any of the Model 3 line. So, I'm hoping now I'm thinking, well, maybe what would just for the sake of argument, just purely as a hypothetical, let's say the base battery in the 3 is a 60 kilowatt and the big battery is an 80. So let's say, what an 80D. I mean, if you do kind of compare, like maybe the 80D will have a 0 to 60 time comparable to the 85D. Maybe it'll be around 4 seconds, and maybe it'll just be super awesome performance anyway. And I'll stop worrying about this or stop agonizing over it. And once the car's out, of course, yeah. And I mean, who knows if they're gonna build the cars in order of, spec the way they're doing with the X, where they're prioritizing, all the SIGs or P85, P90s, and then the production cars, they're building the Ps first. So who knows, because I do want my car quickly. That I've been waiting so long for it as it is. But anyway, I'm droning on way too long about this, but it was kind of this is a conversation that my wife and I have, it's been on the back burner for a long time, and we finally sort of, talked through it. And it was, like I said, it was a really tough conversation. So if you've got anything to say to me about it, I guess, drop me an email, teslapodcast@gmail.com. And if this last, 20 minutes was really boring to you, I really apologize. I'll get to the news here in just a minute. I want to start, though. Let's do one more phone call. I've got a call from Jason down in Tucson, Arizona, home of the Wildcats. The U of A. Had some friends go down there. I've been to Tucson a few times over the years, not since college, but they actually you can get some snow down in Tucson on a rare occasion, at least up at the peak there. Anyway, Jason from Tucson just wanted to call and share his really positive CPO purchase experience after, last week we talked about the blog from that Marty dude, forget his last name, I don't have it in front of me, about his crazy negative CPO experience where Elon took his car. So, Jason, yeah, go ahead. I want to hear your excellent CPO experience. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi, Ryan. This is Jason down in Tucson, Arizona. I just wanted to leave a comment. You had just listened to your post talking about the bad experience with the certified pre-owned, and so I just wanted to counter that with my own certified pre-owned experience. I had ordered I believe it was a Model 60 from I don't know where. They were shipping it to the service center in Scottsdale, Arizona, and like the day it arrived or the day before it arrived from them shipping it, Elon announced the Model 70, because initially they only had the 70D, so they announced the 70, it was $5,000 less, and it made a lot more sense for me to buy a new 70 than this inventory car 60 that I already bought. So even though it had already been shipped to Scottsdale, I called up Tesla and I said, hey, can I switch over and just buy a new one instead? And they said, absolutely, not a problem. They switched over my deposit already. There was no fee for them shipping this car that I said I no longer wanted, and it was a wonderful experience. So just wanted to give you that. Of course, you're going to have, people are going to have good experiences, bad experiences. Just wanted to share a good experience because those happen as well. Love the podcast. Keep on trucking.
Great story, Jason. And it's always great to hear this stuff. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that if you are on the Tesla Motors Club forums and the official Tesla forums, and there's enough of a sample size that we've seen it's okay to acknowledge, we can still be, Tesla fans, but it's healthy to acknowledge the things that need work too. And there does seem to be, Tesla does seem to be going through some growing pains as a company in the communication department. But that being said, it's, certainly wasn't, that story last week wasn't meant to say that every customer experience is bad. Far from it. I mean, obviously the good far outweighs the bad, but it's great to hear that you had such a fantastic experience, and I'm thrilled to hear that you ended up with a new car. That's awesome. I trust you are enjoying your new Model S 70 that was built just for you. That is awesome. If you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic, I would love to hear it. I love when we get the calls on the hotline, the messages. It's a lot of fun. I think it adds a lot of fun flavor to the show to hear from you guys, the listeners. So you can call and leave a message anytime, day or night, on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number. You can call it or you can Skype it. And the number is 1-888-989-8752. It's 1-888-989-TSLA, if that helps you remember it a little more easily. And I do remind you, from my friends at Life on Record that were kind enough to supply the hotline voicemail box, if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more, and be right back with the news. Just a couple of things I wanted to cover this week. There are always I'm selective. I don't bore you with every single little thing because it's some things I just don't think are that interesting. For instance, the story I passed over this week was Tesla hired Apple's the A series microprocessor, the head of that whole chip thing to head autopilot. I mean, that's cool. There's not a lot to say. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with, but, just wanted to cover the stories that do merit actual discussion. First up, Canada. If you are a Canadian Model S, if you're interested in Tesla in Canada, you no longer have the option to buy an 85 kilowatt battery Model S. The 85 option has been removed from the online configuration tool only in Canada so far. This is most likely a smaller scale test to make sure people don't freak out before they roll this out to the US and other markets. I don't expect it will be a freak out. I mean, who doesn't just want more battery? The question, will the price just go up? I mean, is the price effectively going to go up $3,000? Or are they going to actually lower the price of the 90? Probably not. Things tend not to go down in price, but the excellent folks at electrek.co got a statement from Tesla about this, confirming it, and the statement is, quote, "The recently introduced 90 kilowatt hour battery pack offers unprecedented range and value that has been well received by our customers. As a result, we will no longer be offering the 85 kilowatt hour battery. Model S is designed to be completely customizable, ensuring that customers are able to build the car that meets their unique needs, and Tesla is committed to continued innovation and the development of industry-leading technology," end quote. In other words, we're moving forward, deal with it. Except they said it much more politely than that. But yeah, I mean, this is inevitable. I mean, I don't know, if I did have the money to buy a Model S, I would 100% spend the extra $3,000 to get the bigger battery, because I don't live in a cold weather area. It's especially critical for those that do, but more range is always better. You're going to supercharge faster. You're going to have less chance of range anxiety. You're just more empowered the more range you have. So, in my opinion, the 90. I mean, this is they got to, especially the X's. They don't even offer the 85 on the X. So by getting rid of the 85s, they can again streamline production. And it's just simpler and more economical for Tesla, so that they only have the 70 pack and the 90 pack for both the S and the X. So this makes a ton of sense for the company. I think it makes perfect sense for customers. And I suspect we will see this done probably quietly, I guess, in the United States. I don't think they'll press release it or anything. But, Tesla has changed. they've changed the option stuff on the S a lot over 3+ years. There was originally a tech package. There was the rear cargo area, little cover shade thing that was, there've been they've tweaked it all kinds of ways just in the first few years of Model S. And so, yeah, I expect the United States will follow. We'll see the 85 kilowatt hour battery disappear in the US very soon. I'm guessing in the next month or two. And again, remember the 85 and the 90, it's only like a 6% difference. So it doesn't make sense to keep them both around for much longer. And the other story I wanted to cover this week, Elon spoke at a Tesla event in Hong Kong. Tesla's been making a big push there. Apparently they have the highest density of superchargers in Hong Kong than anywhere else in the world, which is cool. Elon spoke there for an hour, a really good chat I recommend watching all of online. The journalist that did it, I don't have her name in front of me. I foolishly didn't write it down. She did a great job conducting the interview. And Elon said a few interesting things, namely, though, the one I want to cover is that, and this was covered beautifully in Dave T's weekly Tesla newsletter, which I plug at the end of the show and I always refer to. It's a very handy tool. Highly recommend you subscribe to it. Helps catch you up to date. Here I like to discuss things, but Dave's newsletter just gets you caught up on the weekly Tesla happenings very quickly. It's awesome. But Elon mentioned, you remember, for those of you who are old school Tesla people, meaning you've either had your car for a few years or you've been following the company for at least a few years, you probably remember that long ago, there was originally an apps tab in the interface. In the original 1.0 interface of Model S, there was an apps tab that never got used and then eventually quietly went away and got moved to the, I don't know an S, but so I can't check. It's somewhere, it's still in the car. It's like in the settings menu somewhere. There is a tab buried in a menu for apps, which apparently is never going to get used. So the original plan was Tesla was going to put out an SDK, a software development kit, so that people could create their own apps for the car. Tesla would, of course, then have to review them and certify them and deploy them. But that plan is apparently, we haven't heard a peep about it in years. And that plan is now apparently fallen by the wayside in favor of them mirroring what's on your phone screen on the giant center screen of the console of the car, which could be done really elegantly. I trust Tesla will do so. So, yeah, I just hope it doesn't impede. They have to do it smartly in a way that it doesn't impede other functions of the car you might want. But I'm sure they'll come up with an elegant solution. This is a quote from Elon. As we've sort of thought about it more, the logical thing to do from an app standpoint is to maybe allow apps on your iPhone or Android to project onto the center display, as opposed to trying to create a new app ecosystem. So that is probably going to be our focus in the future, to enable you to project apps from your phone to the center screen. It does make a ton of sense. To be fair, I'll say a built-in, customized for Tesla app for whatever thing you want. Spotify is rolling out now, but it would be nice. It would be nice, but I could see how this might be the more practical solution. It's all things considered. So maybe by the time Model 3 comes out, by the time I get my Model 3, maybe I will be able to use Pandora easily in the car after all, which is what I would really want, because I love Pandora. And a lot of other cars have it. Many other cars have Pandora integration. In fact, the rental car that I'm sitting in right now, this Mazda 3, has Pandora integration through your phone, but it's there. It goes up on a touchscreen. So this should be an interesting solution. I wonder how long it's going to take. I suspect this is not something, that's going to have to be a major update. Like, they're going to have to test the crap out of that with so many apps, so many things. This will not simply be a minor rollout. I think, and again, we love Elon, but his track record for, it took for delivering on those. He does deliver on the promises. It just usually takes quite a bit longer than anticipated. So, I mean, for me, not being able to own a Tesla yet, I'm just hoping that it's ready by the time I get my Model 3. That by the time the Model 3 ships, hopefully it's in that software version in the car. But hopefully, for those of you that already own Teslas, which of course is the majority of my audience, hopefully it's ready a lot sooner than that for you folks. But I thought that was the most interesting thing out of Tesla's talk, Elon's talk over in Hong Kong. Well, that wraps it up for the news this week. I'm going to come right back, wrap up a couple final things, and then we'll be on our way. Be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast. I remind you, I love hearing from you on the hotline. I think it adds a fun little bit of variety and audience community participation in the show. So if you've got a question or a comment or a discussion topic, I'd love to hear it. Dial in anytime or Skype in. It's toll free either way. The number is 1-888-989-8752. You can follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. And the podcast email address, you can reach me at teslapodcast@gmail.com if you wanted to react to what I was talking about with my Model 3 and finances situation earlier or at the top of the show. Also, nerdstyles.com. That's my little t-shirt side website where I've got some fun video game and geek-inspired t-shirt designs up there. It'll be t-shirt season again before you know it. So if you like, take a look, and if you like any of those, I would love you to buy one. It would help add to my Tesla fund. And again, be sure to subscribe to Dave T's weekly Tesla newsletter, which I adore. It is just a brilliant resource. You can subscribe for free. The website is teslaweekly.com. Dave is also very nice to reciprocate the plug. He's very kind to plug this show in his newsletter, which I very much appreciate, Dave. Thank you so much. And a final reminder that you can now listen. I've been so busy this week. I still need to reach out to Tesla to try and really get this solved. But there is a way that you can listen to this podcast in your Tesla now. Requires a one hoop to jump through. You've got to go search for Tesla Podcast or Ride the Lightning on the TuneIn website. Follow it there, and then it should show up in your favorites when you get in your car. So that is that. And I think that wraps it up for this week. I want to thank everybody for listening. As always, this has been another kind of long show, thanks to my own rambly, weird personal crap that I hope didn't bore anybody. If it did, I will only say that I won't be making a habit out of it. It's not, that kind of thing. Fortunately, I don't have that kind of stuff going on all the time. But I did think it was a relevant thing to bring up. Maybe some of you are going through a similar thing, trying to plan out for your Model 3 or maybe even your Model X. So I don't know. I thought I would share, and I hope the sharing was welcome and not something that made you want to delete the podcast and never listen to it again. So again, my name is Ryan McCaffrey. Thank you all so much. This is Ride the Lightning, and I will see you back here for episode 27 next week.